all your friends. I'm Kathryn Button. I'm Susie Keller's daughter and live in Franklin, Tennessee. And this is my good friend Robyn.
Hello. Hi, ladies.
So tell them, Robyn, a little bit about your history with pies.
Okay.
And why you have something to say.
I have something to say because we're going to make pies today. And yes, in my former life, I did bake pies as a profession and for a living, and we had a company called Porch Pies, which is my maiden name, Robyn Porch, and we delivered them all over Los Angeles. And I know you want me to mention we did have celebrity pie clientele, and it was a really fun, exciting time. But I will tell you, I am from Alabama. I moved to New York City and then to Los Angeles. And in New York, I got the idea I could not find a good pecan pie anywhere. So I started baking pecan pies. People started buying them. And then I find myself in LA making pies for all sorts of people, and it became a small business. So yes, that's a former life. We now live here in Franklin, Tennessee. But
and I'm glad she does.
Yeah, we're going to show you some pie recipes today. All right, so we are going to start with our pie crust recipe, and I have a feeling a lot of you already have a great pie crust recipe, and you know we're going to use Crisco today. Okay, we're going to use some Crisco. I know butter is great, lard is great, but this one is one of those easy things. Crisco is an easy one to work with, easy component to work with. So we're going to do that. It's kind of fail-proof, really, and you may already have a recipe similar. So we start with 3 cups of all-purpose plain flour, and we're not going to super measure these out, but you can. I think a cup is like 5.5 ounces, maybe. But this is TV, and we're just gonna make it look magic like that. Okay, so you got your 3 cups. Kathryn already has it. We actually already pre-did Kathryn's because the next, now this is our 2 teaspoons. The next is we're using 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. So, even though I'm only doing it once, this is a 2 teaspoon mix. All right, so got our teaspoons, 2 teaspoons each of sugar and salt, and then we're just gonna mix our dry ingredients together. And, all right, so that's pretty easy, right? We can do a whisk or a fork or however you like it. The next thing we're gonna add is 1 whole cup of Crisco. This actually is a recipe for 3 pie crusts. So we're gonna add 1 cup of Crisco, and Kathryn, I'm gonna let you do it after I start, okay? This Crisco, I kept in the fridge for a little bit, the refrigerator, because everything, the colder you can get everything, the better, because as you probably know, passing to you, okay? And you've got, here, you can use this one, all right? Gluten can be, if you over mess with gluten, it can be tough. So, heat can bring out the toughness in gluten in the flour. So we're going to try to add things that are cold to our pie crust. So we might try a little Zoom, what do you call this, a time-lapse thing, Gabby? But wait, don't do it yet. Our friend Gabby's filming. Gabby's behind the counter. Behind the, not the counter. So what I'm doing now, you may have a pastry cutter, but you can see in here, Gabby, I'm just going to kind of cut it in. And if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can use 2 forks. Imagine like you're cutting a steak, but not with a knife and a fork, but with 2 forks, if that makes sense. And that's how you'll cut the Crisco into the flour, okay? You wanna do a time lapse now, just for fun? We have been cutting in that fat into our flour. Kathryn, yours is really good. Okay. It's really good. Okay, so our next thing we're gonna do, and I think we're gonna do the time lapse again in a minute, we're going to add, and you all know, every pie crust recipe calls for, unless it calls for some milk, some of them, ice water. So just through the years, it usually calls for like 10 tablespoons, which is kind of 6 ounces. But you want to drizzle slowly. Oh, and I forgot, the all-important fork. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, you are going to, and I'll start it, and then we'll do the time lapse again so you can see how quickly it goes. So we'll see what it needs to look like. All right, this looks pretty good. You see the consistency. Now, we're going to just drizzle. Some people do a pie crust in like a food processor, but I always feel like I will over mix it. So you see how I've just got it started, and then I'm gonna add a little more, and we'll see what it looks like. So I have already made my 3 crust balls here. But Kathryn was finishing up, and I just thought we would show you something a little bit important. You liked this part when you took the class, right? Yeah. So we're going to add just a little bit more. Remember, I know that some of the recipes call for tablespoons. If you do it enough, you trust yourself, once everything starts sort of coming together, it makes sense, right? So it's like you can kind of squish it. You're gonna have to get your hands a little doughy today. But, so it's starting to come together. Thing is, if it's too wet, I don't know, it's not, maybe the pie crust is a little too, not as crispy, I guess, and flaky. But if it's too dry, it's really a pain to roll out too. So we've got it here. I think this is gonna be about right, Kathryn. This recipe, like I said earlier, makes 3 pie crusts. So if you're using kitchen scales, if you do the recipe of 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons each of salt and sugar, and then a cup of Crisco, you should have approximately 3 crust discs that weigh 10 ounces. So that is a good way to know. All right, so see at the bottom? Yeah, I can use my hand and make it stick together. That makes sense here?
Perfect.
Yeah. And then you don't want to overdo it. That's a trick too, right? You don't want to work it, right? It's not like it's pizza dough or biscuits, or I guess biscuits can get tough too. But all right, here's a trick. So we're gonna get saran wrap.
So
this is our friend Barb.
She's assisting today as well.
So we're gonna put 3 of these babies. Just put it in there, wrap it up. And there's another one. We're gonna wrap it up. And then, if these can rest in the refrigerator.
But wait, this is what I thought was fascinating that Robyn does. So normally you would put it in a ball. So she kind of makes it round, but they're thick like that. But then she kind of pushes in the middle, because you said when you're rolling out the pie crust, it helps it to be more of an even circle, right?
Yeah, well, and the trick is to, and see these over here I did, I always make it like a disc, right? And then you kind of pinch the edges. Just because if you've ever rolled out the crust, you know how they split open? But we'll do it again before we roll out, just to check. Okay. But we kind of want them to just rest like that. We're gonna put them in the fridge, or if you only got like an hour or so, put them in the freezer. But if you can put them in for a few hours in the fridge, that's good. They will last up to 24 hours in the refrigerator. Otherwise, you can pop them in the freezer. If you don't have time to roll them within 24 hours, go ahead and put them in the freezer. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we'll put them in the fridge. We'll be back. So these have been resting in we put them in the freezer because we don't have a lot of time. So I'm gonna show you the trick, my trick at least. So remember we made these into discs. So the important part, they're nice and cold like we talked about. You kind of go around the edges of your disc. Again, kind of sealing those so they won't get errant when you roll them out. All right, I put probably a little too much flour here, but here you go. I have this cutting board. You may have something else that you like to roll out on, but okay. So before I start rolling, you can do a lot of things, because you know when you're rolling a crust, sometimes you'll end up with a hump, right? So you'll have like a big hump in the middle, and then the outsides will be super skinny thin. So I'm kind of doing it again, right? So I kind of lay it down, press it down, and we're going to try to keep that disc again, where you pinch here. I might even do this. Do this again. Turn it over. Oh, I'm checking again. All right, now we're ready to roll. Another trick is always flipping your pie crust so that it doesn't get dug into your surface. And I think a lot of you know, I feel embarrassed because I bet your mom can make great pie crusts. And it's almost like, I mean, I may not be a young woman, but kind of young compared to
you have some good tricks.
Your mom.
You have some great tricks that people may not have ever heard before.
So what I'm doing, so that's okay, if it just tears or whatever. So what I'm doing is, for those of you who don't make your own pie crust, you always start from the center and you come out, right? So you start in the center and you never push. It's really a subtle thing. You don't push hard on the outside. So you kind of come from the center here, 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 here. Looks good. You can kind of look at it. And the good news is you can flip it. And when you flip it, you kind of get to examine, oh wow, this is a little thick here, and then this is thin here. So now I can kind of redistribute my weight of how I roll out the crust. So there you go. That looks good. So it's about right. You'll get an eye for how you want to do your pie crust. I have pie pans, I think, here.
So Robyn, when you make pies for porch pies, how many pies a day?
Oh! I mean, and the thing is we did, everything was ingredients. Yes, we use Crisco, but we hand rolled everything. We use real eggs, all that stuff. Oh, in the holidays, we would do like 500 a day. We would have like 3 kitchens going. It was crazy. Oh, I didn't even tell you what it was. So you see this? I kind of laid it up. Let me show you how to do that again. Okay, wait. Let me show you one more time.
Sorry, I'm talking.
That was a good question. Good. All right, so remember we have that. I think the best way, and really it's the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel about how you handle your pie crust. I like to roll it up. And again, it's Crisco, so it's easy to handle. Kind of slide it under. Look at that. Kind of look, oh wow, you kind of, okay, it matches. Now this is a trick part too. I feel like maybe that's thick. You kind of, these aren't huge pie crust pans, pie pans. So, can you see that, Gabby? Can you see? So what I'm doing, so if you have like your homemade deep dish, something like that one up there, you'll have plenty of crust, these pie crusts, but these pie pans, I mean, they might be a little bigger than the ones you get in the grocery store, but they're disposable. So what I'm doing is really just kind of sitting, like making a rope sit on top. So it's not sliding down, it's kind of just sitting on top. I'm rolling it up, so you have a nice crispy edge to your crust. Rip that off, make it pretty. Pinch it right there. And then, so now I have it kind of set. That's rustic pretty, right? We're not done yet. Okay. So now, sometimes air can get under here and it kind of bubbles up your pie. So what you're going to do is kind of push up against here. Does that make sense? So it kind of clings against, yeah. So now you can see it fits. Kind of, I don't know if you can tell on the camera. And then you can do your edging however you want. It's really set up the way you want it, and it's up to you. However you want to do your finger or your fork or however. I just do the simple pinch because it keeps it nice, and you kind of pinch and go through. And it's kind of fun watching somebody else make a pie, isn't it? It is. It's like watching somebody do clay or draw something, like Bob Ross of pies.
It's art.
Right? Yeah. But you can really do pretty things. So that's really it. So now,
how perfect that is.
Look at that. I mean, thousands of practices. You got your pie crust. All right, wonderful. Next step, we're gonna put it together. So we're making our apple pie today, and some of you might have these little apple slicers. Look how easy and fast it is.
That's amazing.
It is really cool. And you can get them like at Bed Bath & Beyond. They're usually like $20, $24 or something. And it peels it, cores it, makes it fun to eat.
Just like old saxophone Joe, and he's got the hog's head up on.
Okay, so we peeled our apples, and they're already starting to brown. So we're going to put some lemon juice on them, of course. That little wonderful doohickey that Barb and Gabby, slashers, used, nice. All right, so all this recipe is, it's about 5 Granny Smith apples, or a little over a pound, like a pound 0.6 or something, if you have a scale, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. You know what the good news is? After it cooks, it doesn't matter. It's supposed to be brown and caramelly, but it really is. It cuts the sweet in the apple. This little tablespoon of lemon juice. So you'll add a tablespoon of lemon juice to that. Oh, I need to get my little spatulas. So you'll mix this up, and then we're going to add. Let's do it all now. We'll mix this up. Let's see what we have. I'm looking at a double recipe, so let's see if we can do our math. A half teaspoon of cinnamon. And I think after that, half teaspoon of cinnamon and half teaspoon of nutmeg. You'll have the recipe, so you don't really have to see all the. Watch carefully as I pour that nutmeg in. Extra special. Okay, and then we're gonna mix. Oh, and then we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, which I pre-measured. Hi, Ruby. 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and wait for it, white sugar. How much white sugar? Let's see. A 1/4 cup of a half cup of regular sugar. Good. Half cup of white sugar. Oh, I pre-measured. Okay, we need to come back at you, and we're gonna get spatulas and mix it up. I'll see you in a minute. All right. Okay. So we've mixed everything in the apples. This is the easiest part. We just pour it in. We mixed these apples a little bit ago, and so there's more juice than usually. It'll still come out when you cook it, and it'll bubble up and get all caramelized and yummy. But don't let it get you nervous. If you do the apples early, it will have more juice. But I don't think ultimately it matters. If it makes you more comfortable, maybe do the apples last thing. Pre-make your crumble first so that you can put it in the fridge and it'll be nice and cold before you put it on top of your apples. This is the good news. You don't have to dot this with butter or anything. Now you get your crumble. Now we made a crumble, and I don't think we videotaped this. This is one of my favorites because all you do is mix up the apples and you put the crumble on top. You don't have to dot it with butter or anything like that. We did not videotape making the crumble, but it's a really simple recipe. It's just butter and brown sugar and flour and cinnamon, you know, and you have the recipe, you'll see it. So really, you just get it on there, don't let it fall off. And I do think this is the perfect combination of the sweet crumble topping and the tart apple. Don't forget that lemon juice in the apple filling. Now, we had the crumble in the refrigerator before. We made that first, before the apples, because it needs to be nice and cool. And your pie crust should be cold before it goes in the oven too. And we talked about this, you know, I feel like they know this, but the colder the pie crust is, or the pie, the better it'll be crispier, it'll be flakier and lighter. Because it's like when you think about frying something in a pan with oil that's not too hot, it kind of is like, ooh. But when it's really hot, it gets that pop, and that's what's gonna happen when we put it in the oven.
And I wish y'all could smell this, because it smells like
not even
fall.
baking yet, yeah.
So nice.
It's gonna be so good. It is. Okay.
All right.
So we're gonna put these in the oven, and we'll take well, let's see what it looks like when it comes out. We're about to take it out.
It's time.
It smells really good. And I know which one is Kathryn's, and I know which one is mine. You ready? You see it? There they go.
Oh,
my
I wish y'all
heaven
could
sakers.
smell this.
There,
It smells so good.
Yeah, it's all bubbly, just the right amount of bubble.
Come in, Gabby, and
There it is.
see.
Okay, we're gonna wait a little bit to eat it, but we're definitely gonna eat that.
It's delicious. Okay, so just a couple minutes before we go, Robyn. So what was your, what were some of the questions that I said I was going to ask her? What was your most popular pie that you sold, that you made so many of? You could do it in your sleep.
Oh, the buttermilk pie, which is just like a chest pie. That was the most popular because nobody knew what it was, and now they do. So yeah, simple, basic, that kind of thing.
And did you make little pies too?
We made every kind of pie. So we made big pies. We had sissy pies, which are like 5-inch pies, and so 4 of those make one order. And then we had little pies. We did wedding. We did everything. You know, once you start doing them, pies for every occasion.
Okay. And what was the most complicated pie you made?
Probably, you know those angel pies? And y'all probably know it's like with the baked meringue, and then you make like a mousse, and then you have whipped cream on top. Well, I would make them for Passover actually for lots of people because it's grain-free. Well, there's a gluten-free thing for it, you know, so nothing with grain. You couldn't even use cornstarch. You could use cream of tartar. So that one probably. Yeah, and it's very good. Well, I think I actually got the idea for that one from, I think it was like a Paula Deen pie that I kind of tweaked a little bit, but basically one of those. Yeah. All right, there's 2 fascinating questions.
Just make pies all day. I'm making